So, yes, she is. She's really missing her own personal tutorial. Today, we are going to be taking a little look at drafting mission trees. So, if you don't know me, hello, I am Liv. I am a content reviewer. I am somebody who is far too obsessed with Anbennar, and I am somebody who's made far too many mission trees. Today, we are going to be looking at somebody's draft. They're somebody that I am content reviewing, and their draft has come out of read and review in a little bit of a rough state. Nobody's fault, it's just the way it is. So I thought what we would do is together we would take a look at the content guidelines, the making missions document. We're going to take a look actually in game at the position of the tag in question, and then we're going to take a look at the draft. And we're just going to kind of go through a bit of the draft and we're going to see how we can improve it. And we're going to try and keep in mind our kind of fundamentals of what we should do to make missions more interesting, if that makes sense. Now, like I said in the announcement, none of this is going to be like particularly like super high level, like involved sort of system stuff or anything like that. Like we're not making a black demence here. We're not making a Pashani. We're making a nice, coherent, fundamentally sort of simple tree, or at least that's what we're trying to build. If you're looking for more advanced stuff, this is not the tutorial for you. Okay? So I don't actually know how to pronounce the name of the tag, but it's the Trolls, Grizzahut, I believe, Grizzhut. There's a funny hat on one of the letters. But the thing about this one is that it is not an easy tag to start off with. So hopefully you can all see my stream. Here, this is our little tag. If you're not familiar with these guys, these are friendly trolls. So their whole thing is they're buddies. They love everybody. They're going to befriend people. But they also have a really fucking shit start. Like, I'm going to zone in as them right now. So obviously you can see they're here in the kind of middle dwarf, and we're just going to zone in. Do, 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 do. So hopefully straight away you can see why this start is so bad. We are a 2-province miner. We have no vision on anyone, and our 2 provinces are about 7 development, and they are both cavern tiles. Our ruler is a 161. We start without feudalism, and we start with 222 technology. So here is something that's really, really important when you're making a mission tree. Some people do not do this. Play a game with your tag before you make the mission tree. Even if it's just the first 50 years, play a game with the tag. It's really, really apparent when you haven't played a game with your tag because you will make missions that do not match up with the situation of the tag. So this is something that came up in an earlier version of this like this content review, but the initial missions didn't make any sense. I went in and I played a game as these guys. If you play them straight up, normally, as the game kind of wants you to right now, you will spend the first 30 years colonizing 3 provinces, and then you will die to the first goblin tag that migrates next to you. So, we need to think about that when we're designing our mission tree, right? We have to think about the realities of the game as they are presented to us, and we have to think about how we design our tree to help us with the challenges that we face, and also to, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? How we can go with the flow. Now, I want to say that this isn't a kind of a universal rule. You don't always have to make a mission tree that kind of goes with the natural flow of gameplay. If you want to do something special, you can make a mission tree that forces you into another direction. There are some great examples of tags that do that, that make you play in an unorthodox way, and that is absolutely fine. I wouldn't recommend making one of those for your first mission tree, though, and that generally is not my design philosophy. So I probably should have prefaced the whole speech with this, but one of the, or rather, there's kind of 2 things that I'm going to be talking about here. One of those things is content guidelines. So that's stuff that you should just do. It might be rules, it might be, just kind of guidelines, but some of it was also going to be my personal design philosophy. So if you come out of this and you think that some of these bits, no, don't really agree with that. If that's just my philosophy, that's fine. You don't have to agree with my philosophy. I'm just showing you how I would design a tag. But ultimately, there are some rules about making mission trees in Anbennar, and you do have to stick to those, unless you want to make a submod. And you can make a submod, that's fine. So, obviously, our situation sucks, right? We've got two provinces. Colonizing this province or this province is going to take us absolutely forever. We do start with a colonist, but we are troll admin, which means that yeah, it's rough. It's a rough time. Let's have a think then about missions that would help us with this, okay? So, what's a really obvious thing that we could give in our mission tree that's going to help the player with the situation they're in here? I'm sure most of you have already got an idea, right? Colonists. Yeah, exactly. Settler growth. So we could give a mission, let's say, dev these tiles twice. It's going to give us some colonists. That's great. What else? So I mentioned before, one of the big problems with this start is that as soon as you border a goblin, they're going to declare on you with 30k guys and they're going to kill you. So what can we do to help with that? This is a bit of a classic in mission tree design. We can have a mission early in the game, built a force limit. Yeah, it gives us military buffs, right? So I'm going to change the screen really quick because I think we've kind of got the picture of where we're starting. So we're going to actually have a look at the draft now. Just bear with me 1 second. Sorry if that all booted you out. You'll have to reboot it. So here we go. This is the current state of this mission tree draft. It might not be very visible to you at the moment because I'm super zoomed out on a very large monitor, but don't worry, I'll zoom in a second. As you might notice, it's a bit of a mess, right? So we've got all sorts of stuff all over the place. And this is another problem with the current state of the draft, but we're going to think about that a little bit later. Right now, we're just worried about the start of the tree. So we're just going to zoom in here. So the start of the tree here, we've already kind of cleaned up a little bit. You can see that we have two missions like what we were just talking about. Those provinces do have a higher chance of gold, yes. The one advantage of the start, I just tabbed into E4, I realize you can't see. The one advantage of your start is Hood is that your capital is a gold province. It's like the only thing you have going for you. Anyway, yes, wait. So missions. So you can see now we do actually have some missions that help us out a little bit. Before we go here, I figure let's actually take a look at our themes. So anybody who's done made a mission tree in EU4, in Anbennar, knows that as part of making a mission tree, you propose themes first, right? So these are the themes that we are working with here. These are obviously based off of the tag, right? So, you read the national ideas, you read whatever lore about the tag, you look at the starting situation, the geopolitical context, and this is what we've got to work with. So our themes are about being friends, finding Brock, which was, as a cool little narrative thread. Also making a load of food, making allies, collecting vassal swarms. That's our, befriend people theme, and also being tolerant. So our themes here are really cool. So there's a lot of stuff that we can explore. But it means we also have to be a little bit unorthodox because we're not really doing traditional conquest. Yeah, sorry, and I'm ignoring you. So our missions here, this is a kind of a good start. So you can see this is our central mission, settling the cavern. It wants us to have 5k inventory in the west and north Great Cavern. Those are those two provinces that were next to us that are uncolonized at the game start. And it wants us to have the colonization privileges given out to mages and tribes, which are the two estates that we start with. And what it does is it colonizes both of those provinces and it swaps the culture in both provinces to our culture. That's great. So that's just a speed boost for us, right? Gets us those two provinces straight away, a little bit stronger, and it's not like really broken overpowered because again, your position fucking sucks. Now, where we start to run into issues in this tree is when we get a little bit further on, past the point at which we've actually actually kind of, improved it. So down here, you're going to start to notice that we run into a lot of missions that have a lot of effects, or on the flip side, just kind of ask for very, very bland things, okay? I think what I want to do before I delve into much further in the mission tree is we're going to take a look kind of around everything that's been designed here so we can get a bit more of the full picture, okay? You might have noticed this already. So these are our modifier boxes. Here, these are our permanent country modifiers. These are our permanent province modifiers. This is an upgradable country modifier. This is another upgradable country modifier. Now, I'm not sure if we've got any balance members in the chat, but you might notice that we have way too much stuff here, okay? Way too much power. And I bring this up now because this is a theme that we're going to notice as we go through the mission tree. And this is quite a common pitfall of people when they're designing mission trees, is that they will make too many rewards just modifiers. So, a modifier is great. It's nice to have modifiers. It's particularly nice to have modifiers that you can feel, but we can be a lot more interesting when we're making rewards than just giving modifiers, especially temporary modifiers, but it doesn't just help to make them permanent modifiers, okay? And then just kind of looking around the rest of the draft, you will see that we've got stuff over here. So we've got like a special gov reform, another special gov reform. We've got like a decision. We've got some massive event chains over here. We've got a whole event-based system. So this is lifted from the Vangheim system. There are some problems with this. We might get to this later. Again, we've got some massive event chains down here, and we've got a massive event chain down here. So as a general kind of guide, if you are making a mission tree, please don't lay out your mission tree quite like this. I'm not blaming creatively here, by the way, because I did ask them to move these down because they were really like up here before, but try and arrange it so that it is clear when you do a mission, when the event fires and what that leads to, etc. Right now, it's very hard to know where everything is unless you just kind of know where everything is. So, right, let's get back to our missions. Sorry, I'm just going to have a sip of water. Bear with me 1 second. So, the story that creatively wants to give here, or at least the kind of beginnings of the narrative, are supposed to be that we colonize our home area and then we move out and we befriend Verkal Gulan. If you weren't paying attention earlier, Verkal Gulan is the gold dwarves. I assume you all know that. They're very close to us. We are meant to make them our first friend. So that is what we are kind of looking at over on the left here. So we're going to ignore this over on the right for a second, but here we can see that this is our second mission. These missions are okay. The triggers on these are fine. This reward is a little bit bland, but it's an opening mission, so having a temporary modifier that just gives some morale, that's fine, It's the opening mission, it doesn't need to be super interesting. This mission is where we start to get a little bit worse. So this is okay. Discover them, colonize the province next to them, have some money. That's fine. Generally speaking, I would advise against having missions that just require you to have money or missions that require you just to have power. When you are making mission requirements, what you want to do is you want to make a requirement that is semi-challenging for the player, but is also flavorful. The problem with making requirements that are just have gold or have admin power, have mill power, have whatever, is that there's not really a whole lot of flavor there, right? They're very generic, so they're very applicable, but that also means that they're very meaningless. What is the gold here actually saying, right? Now, in this case, I think it's okay because they're the gold dwarves. So giving the gold dwarves gold kind of makes sense, right? But you will notice throughout the tree that we're going to find a lot more has gold triggers, and we're going to want to get rid of those. Now, the trigger, okay, let's say that's fine. What is this? So we start the Dwarven Feast event chain. Now, me as a reviewer looking at this, my instinct would be to go look over to the right to see where that event is. Oh, excuse me. So normally we would have the missions arranged in the middle and events on the right. In this case, it's actually down at the bottom, but again, that is because I asked it to be over there. Or at least I believe it's down at the bottom. Where is it? You see the problem now, don't you? Even I don't remember where it is. If anybody spots it, do let me know. Oh, there we go. I think I found it. Here, yeah. Overcoming suspicions. God, that was difficult, wasn't it? Yes. Okay. So here, this is our event chain. So this is the first event. This is the kind of the follow-up, and then we've got some more stuff down here. So first event, okay, it fires, it makes a truce between us and them. That's good. That means they can't attack us. If they could attack us, that would ruin the narrative, wouldn't it? Here's our second event. This is probably going to fire a little bit after this. Now, note here, the draft doesn't say how long after this fires. That should really be included here. There should be a little gap, right? Like maybe like 2 months, something like that. Now here, we've got some interactivity, which is cool. So we've got option 1, we can make a normal feast. Option 2, a really big feast. Option 3, option C, option 3, a really, really, really big feast. And we're spending that gold that the mission asks for, and then we're also giving ourselves an optional debuff. So this gives relations, basically. And then we get another event. This is just a flavor event. And then that triggers the, the conclusion. So the conclusion here is based on the opinion we have with them. Now, we are monstrous, so by default, they fucking hate our guts. But this, like, I actually kind of like this. So we're having, again, what's the word? We have some, like, control over the result. Sometimes what people will do with things like this is that they will make, different scenarios that can happen, and then they will just leave them to pure chance. So it would be like, 30% chance of great outcome, 40% chance of normal outcome, 30% chance of bad outcome. Um, that's bad design. That's shit design, frankly, because all you do is you just encourage the player to save scum. If you don't give them any control over the results, like, you're just fucking them for no reason, right? If that was me, I would just save scum until I got the best result, because what am I supposed to do? So another lesson for you, try and give players control over the outcomes. There's a lot of, God, I can't remember what it's called. The blue mage tag in Bulwar, I really like that because you can get like a really good result from your final project. Or yes, that's the one, Varamhamar. Varamhar. The nice thing about that is that you control if you win or not. Now, obviously, we can debate over whether it's clear enough what you have to do, but it's good that you're able to influence the outcome. It's not just a dice roll. Banana hammer. Thank you, Chang. So yeah, all of this, it's kind of okay. Now, it might possibly be a little bit strong because we've basically just turned them into a march for, kind of close to free. Cost us 200 gold, but at the end of the day, balance is a matter for balanced reviews to sort out. And also, again, our start is really, really fucking bad. We could probably fucking vassalize the command and we'd still be in a shit spot. Okay, so unfortunately, we are rapidly running out of the draft that has been honed. So we've had a look at these 3 missions. That's great. What we've done now is we've progressed from being our 2-province minor little guy self. Now we have 3 provinces and we have a Verkal Gulan March. That's great. We're in a position where we're not going to die to a goblin migrating next to us. We've started exploring our themes of befriending the locals and, just kind of colonizing the Dwarven. Where do we go next? Well, we're going to look over here at this mission here, so setting up farms. This is where we start incorporating one of our other themes, right? So again, if you remember, back up here, one of our themes is about how much we love food. Now, if you don't relate to this, I don't like you anymore. I fucking love eating. But yeah, so one of our themes is about collecting ingredients. We start by cultivating fungi and serpent bloom, and then we get more and more spicy ingredients as we go along. So that is where we've started exploring this theme here. So you can see it's asking us for a diplomatic advisor, and it's asking us to have devved every Great Cavern province at least twice. Now, this might be a little bit too demanding. Deving each Great Cavern province at least twice, that's 8 dev clicks, and it's 8 dev clicks on plus 80%. So I think plus 80% is what? 80 mana per click? So 8 clicks at 80 mana, that's, oh no, why have I put myself in the position where I have to do math? Like 640? Yes, thank you, Tom, 640. So that's a lot of mana, right? That's a lot of mana that we're not wasting it because we're turning it into dev, but it's still pretty bad. It's mana we could be using to say dev push Renaissance, something like that. So that's something that I would worry about here, but overall it's a fine trigger. Developing the area, that makes sense. We are setting up farms, so we're increasing the development in the provinces. That's a nice thematic kind of thoroughfare, right? Again, with our mission requirements, we always want to be linking what we are doing mechanically with what we are doing thematically. So we're setting up farms here, we're making increasing production. We could even ask specifically for it to be production dev. That might be even better. So we could do has dev'd every great province at least once in production. And we're actually quite good at that because if you remember, our ruler has 6 diplo power. Diplo dev? No, dip power. 6 mana. He's a 6 dip ruler. Now, there is a problem with this mission though. So when we look at the reward, what do we see? So we see Serpent Bloom will be produced in West Great Cavern, and we see fungi produced in North Great Cavern. Now, some of you might remember from earlier, what did we say that those two provinces had a higher chance of spawning? Exactly, yes, they have a higher chance of spawning gold. Do we think that it is going to feel good for a player if they get their gold replaced with fungi or with serpent bloom? No, exactly. It is not going to feel good for a player if they get their gold replaced with fungi or serpent bloom. There's two ways we could go about this. If we really want those provinces to produce a fungi or serpent bloom, what we could do is we could move that effect into settling the cavern. So this mission here, which the one which instantly colonizes them, it's probably going to feel a lot less bad for the player if the instant colonization effect just gives you a mediocre trade good, rather than it giving you gold and then the next mission taking it away. There are some situations in which a mission giving you a debuff can be like good. There's an example that I'm going to bring up here where if any of you played the Rat MT in South Atlantia, Usrenu, God, I can't pronounce it. Usrenu, Reist made it. He's here in the chat. There is a mission which gives you like a 000 immortal rat air, um, which obviously, is not a very good effect, but it's a build up for the next mission. So missions don't always have to buff you directly, but if they are not going to buff you, they should be debuffing you in a way that is going to pay off later. Players do not like missions that just slap you in the face for no reason. Players will probably still complain about a mission that does pay off later, even if it does debuff you in the first place, but as long as you are happy with the fact that they'll get something out of it at the end of the day, that's okay. You don't always have to listen to the players. Sometimes they're wrong, and you are right. At least that's what I tell myself. So yes, this resource thing here, I don't like that. I would take that out. What's the next thing? So we also get a temp mod here. It doesn't actually say that it's a temp mod. I assume it's a temp mod because this is way, way too early in the tree to be giving out perma modifiers like this. Perma modifiers, I mentioned it before, they're fine to have, they're a necessary part of mission trees. You will give out some perma modifiers. We shouldn't be giving out perma modifiers in our second mission. No, no, bad. Bad, 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 bad. Unless it's, like a very, very small thing that builds up. For example, in Istralor, I think I give out a perma modifier in the second row, but it's like a very small effect and it's an upgradable modifier. So the idea is that you get introduced to upgradable modifier and it builds up to something good later. This here, Well-Fed Explorers, 5% settler chance and 25 yearly settlers. I mean, okay, it's not super overpowered, but I wouldn't want to see that just being handed out for free. Below that, we've got kind of the same problem again. So upgrades abundance for all. Now, you're probably thinking, what's abundance for all? We're going to go find out what abundance for all is. Abundance for all is this. So it's the upgradable modifier shown before. So upgrades abundance for all means that we go from level 0 to level 1. And what does that mean? Well, it means that we've just given ourselves a permanent minus 10% dev cost modifier. Again, if there's any balance members in the chat, you will probably be having a fit right now. Row 2, no, we shouldn't be giving out minus 10% permanent dev cost, even if all our provinces do suck. What we could maybe do is we could give a local modifier to our Great Cavern provinces that reduces the dev cost there. Again, remember Cavern plus 80% dev cost, it fucking sucks. We could bring that down like a lot, and that would be fine, and that would be cool. And it would also feel great, right? Like if you slap a minus 80% dev cost modifier, a player's going to look at that and go, wow, that's fucking sick. Even if it's just making it like a fucking farmland tile or whatever. But we shouldn't be giving a global mod like this. No, 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 no. Bad, 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 bad. It's kind of like what I was saying with Istralor, right? Like we can introduce ourselves to an upgradable modifier. That's good. But the level of which we've introduced it is much too high. 10% dev cost, if we, go by Thor's tome here, this would be an S tier modifier, right? So we've basically just given somebody an S tier NI's worth of power for, if you remember, we've hired a Diplo advisor and dev'd 8 times. Much, much too easy. Okay. Okay, let's move over to the left. So we're kind of going down to row 3. If you remember here, we're kind of okay with this mission. This mission, we don't mind the trigger so much. We don't really like the reward. Actually, okay, let's redraft the reward rather than moving on. So I'm just going to delete the whole thing. Actually, no, I'm not going to delete the whole thing. I'm going to delete the bottom bit. That's fine. I'm going to delete the top bit as well. Okay, so we've got well-fed explorers. That's fine. That makes sense. We've set up farms. We've developed them. Our explorers are now being fed because we're making a lot of food. Let's make that temporary. So, sorry, I can't talk and type because I'm in push to talk. So you're just going to have to deal with silence for a second. Let's just say 50 years. That seems like an okay number. Don't worry too much about getting numbers precise. At least if you're a content reviewer, I leave that shit for balance. They can deal with it. Let's give out something else though. This mission would probably be okay with just the temp modifier, but it's just a little bit boring. So yeah, if we remember what we said before, we were talking about giving a local development cost modifier, right? Is that a good idea on this mission though? If you remember what we've done, we've dev'd every Great Craven province at least twice. Does it feel good if developing our Great Cavern provinces gives us a reward that makes it easier to dev the Great Cavern provinces? This is probably a good time to introduce the Making Missions document, which has been conveniently waiting for us in a tab the whole time. This is quite old, but it's still pretty good. So general things you should avoid when you are making a mission tree. If we have a look at this, one of these should say, here we go, number 2, do not give the player a reward that would have helped them achieve that same mission, like X% dev cost after you ask them to develop 7 provinces. That's just insulting and does nothing. So, while yes, it was a good idea, it is still a good idea, and maybe we could do it somewhere else. We shouldn't be giving a local dev cost modifier in this mission because it's insulting to the player. It's basically saying, hey, you know, this would have been a lot easier if I'd given you this reward sooner. The way I would tend to design things is if you want to do stuff like that, you're doing it the wrong way around. What you want to do is you want to give a reward in the mission before that helps with the mission after. So back here. What else could we give here? So we're already giving a temp mod. Is there some sort of instant effect or like kind of low level permanent buff that we could give here? We could still give province modifiers, right? So perhaps rather than giving a province modifier that is making it easier to develop these provinces, we could give a province modifier that just kind of improves these provinces. So we could just say like, um, you know, burgeoning farm. And what could burgeoning farm do for us? Well, maybe it gives us manpower because, you know, there's a lot to eat. So there's a lot of us people. +5 manpower recovery, that's an idea, but I think that you are falling for the trap of going for global modifiers too fast. We're looking at a local area here. So what I would be looking at is a local effect. Don't overlook the like the province modifier giving local effects as a reward. They can be deceptively powerful and they can also be quite cool. Yeah, so Edward has a good suggestion, 20% local manpower. That sounds good to me. We could do flat manpower as well, like that would work. So let's just add in a little province modifier. I do agree. I would say flat local manpower is cooler. I'm going to leave it as the big farms because that was the suggestion I got from Edward. But personally, I would have gone for flat as well. I think either is fine. And if I saw the 20%, I wouldn't have like batted an eyelid. But yeah, I think flat is very cool. Okay, so we've improved that mission a lot. There's still a question over whether this requirement is too hard, but it's not really worth thinking about right now. We're going to go down a row now. So we're going to have a look here. We've got this mission, fortify the gate. Now, again, we need to start by analyzing what's the thematic intent of this mission. Obviously, it's to protect ourselves, right? So there's a big scary Jadari outside, or perhaps a big scary Zoka. They could attack us, they could kill us. Obviously, our trolls, they're not going to want to die. Also, us as a player, we are not going to want to die. So this is a good opportunity where we can kind of match up what the player wants mechanically with what the nation wants mechanically. No, thematically. What the player wants mechanically with what the nation wants thematically. So both the trolls and us have an interest in not dying. How can we help the player not die? Well, we can do something like this. So we could ask for a fort, or we could give a fort. Now, that's the intent of the mission. What the mission is actually asking for at the moment, I don't think really marries up with what it is intending to do. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more just so we can have a look at it. We're asking for 1k gold. Now, that's a lot of gold, right? Like, that's a lot of gold. We could have 2 gold mines, so it's not out of the question that it's like doable. I mean, technically we will have 2 gold mines with Verkal Gulen, but it's still a shitload of gold. That's way too high. And if we remember what we were saying about gold before, gold costs generally not something that we want to be overly using. They can be fine in the right situation, especially early on, but generally they're a bit flavorless. especially when we've just used a gold cost in the mission above. So I don't like this gold cost. I'm going to get rid of that. Now, the next requirement, completed 2 mage agendas. This is an interesting requirement in the sense that it's not something I often see asked for, completing specific agendas. It's something that's quite doable, and it encourages you to interact with an area of the game in a way that you probably kind of wouldn't. So I like that. The problem I have with this, well, does anyone want to guess what the problem I have with this is? Again, this is a mission about defending ourselves, and it's about fortifying a gate. Okay, well, yeah, okay. That is one problem I do have with this. All the mage enders do suck. You are right. That wasn't what I was trying to get at, though. Yeah, nothing to do with defensiveness. What has doing agendas for our mages got to do with fortifying a gate? You could like construct some reason, probably. Like, if you're like a magic tag, you could do that. Like, it's probably doable. But when I look at it, I don't really get why. Now, I wouldn't if a contributor brought this to me, I wouldn't instantly reject it. This is a situation where I would go, okay, how do you see this contributing to what we're actually doing? And then I would, expect them to explain it to me. The mage tower equals attrition thing, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe we could say we're magically fortifying the gate. My question is where's the kind of magic coming from? This is a kind of a theme that's sort of arising from nothing. Um, and obviously I'm kind of biased from a design perspective because I've seen the themes, but where's it coming from? I think if we're going to fortify the gate, we should probably build a fort, right? It's not crazy that we should build a fort. So rather than placing a 4th level fort in the reward, and again, we're going to touch that in a second, let's say we have a fort in Heroes Gate. Just to answer your question, and no, it's actually fine. It would be a problem if you didn't insta-colonize the 2 provinces in the first mission, but AI Vocal Gulen will not be able to get to that province before you do as a player, Grizzlehood, when you instantly get those 2 provinces. If they do, the player fucked up and they should just restart the run, frankly. That's a skill issue at that point. Because I could be wrong, but I believe remnants can't colonize while they're in remnant disaster. So you've got 10 years there. If you somehow fail to colonize the right province for 10 years, you deserve it. Now, I'm going to get rid of the completed 2 major agendas thing here. The agendas suck, and I also don't think it thematically lines up with the fortification. The have a mage tower, for now, I'm going to leave. Normally, I would not expect have a mage tower in a mission like this. That's an interesting suggestion, Leaf, if you were saying doing them for the tribes. I don't think it fully kind of mirrors up. One thing you should consider is that Heroes Gate, the province here, that is going to be owned by Vilkal Gulan. So it's a bit weird if we're interacting with the tribes to fortify one of our non-dwarf tribal provinces. Again, we're kind of quibbling over detail a little bit here. 4 plus Mage Tower feels like a pretty large investment early. Yes, it is. It definitely is. Um, it is quite gold intensive. You do have at least 2 gold mines though, so you are pretty rich. The only thing that you really have going to you as this tag is the fact that you have a bunch of gold. Now, it might still be too much. It could entirely be too much. And like I said, generally I wouldn't ask for a Mage Tower on top of this, at least at this point in the tree. But I think it's probably fine. It's not something I'm going to dig down too much into at this point. We've got worse things to deal with. Like the reward, yeah. So the minus 1k gold, obviously that's a holdover from when we were asking for a bunch of money. We're going to get rid of that. Magnive has a good suggestion. Content lead, everybody. So I I don't think that's a bad idea. That is definitely an idea. I kind of like aesthetically don't like it because I don't like asking for gold specifically, two missions in a row like that. I prefer the idea of actually building something. So we won't technically own Verkle Gulan ourselves. They'll be on March at this point. Now, we could have the event that gives us Verkle Gulan give us a Dwarven Advisor, and then we could be like, yeah, has a Dwarven Advisor. We could also ask for a mill advisor here. Like, that's quite a nice requirement, like have a military advisor. Um, I wouldn't ask for a specific advisor. That's, again, content guideline. Somewhere in here, here we go. If you want to use an advisor type as a requirement, have a few alternatives. Nobody likes rerolling for a single specific advisor for 3 years. So we could ask for like level 1 mill advisor, level 2 mill advisor even. Again, we're surprisingly rich. Yeah, mill engineer or any level 2 mill advisor. That's a good requirement. Like, I quite like that. That's cool. We could even do that instead of the mage tower. Like, that would probably be okay. I'm going to move on from the requirement a little bit though, because I want to kind of get through stuff. We're going to look at the reward. So the reward of placing a level 4 fort and adding a temporary province modifier that gives 200% defensiveness for 50 years. This is a little bit too strong. So common theme here, again, we're doing stuff a little bit too hard. Not only is giving a level 4 fort at the start of the game a bit bonkers, 200% defensiveness is like, defensiveness maxing levels of defensiveness. They will die on our fortifications forever. We need to tone this down a little bit, okay? What I would probably just do here, delete that whole thing. We can still give a province modifier. That's a nice guy. Nice idea. Let's do something more like, let's do something like this. Something like that. Like, it's just a nice little modifier. It makes it harder to take the fort. Garrison size is actually quite kind of disgusting as trolls because you do a lot of damage with your garrisons. Again, from a mission tree perspective, we're not trying to solve problems for the player. We're not taking any kind of challenge completely away from them. What we are doing is we are trying to help them with things. If we have a mission that solves a problem for them, we are taking away interesting gameplay from them. Again, this is a generalization, so it's not always true. Please don't take this as gospel. But what we generally want to be doing is we want to be helping them deal with challenges rather than just solving the challenges for them. That is a really interesting idea, Bromar. That would have to be a question for Bonnie or Jothel. I don't think it's possible. It could be. Um, Mention of the magic rework is something else. Like, we could ask for like a ward on here. Eh, I don't want to get too much into the magic rework because I realize that a lot of people watching probably haven't, done anything with it. Asking for a ward is okay. The slight problem with asking for a ward that I have found from doing Saladrenin is that the cantrip level ward you can only do if somebody's already sieging your forts, so it's a bit of a bitch. Anyway, we're going to leave that one. It looks kind of okay now. It's not perfect, but it's all right. Living in each other's homes. So what is this one? Well, it wants us to develop Verkelgulen 5 times. It wants us to have 200 hit power, and it wants us to have 200 relations with them. And then it does an absolute shitload of things, right? So it creates a large troll minority. It loses us the dip power. It upgrades another modifier. It gives us another temporary modifier. It gives us another permanent effect. It distributes 5 dwarven minorities to own provinces, and it gives 50 for support for feudalism in the Great Cavern area. So the trigger, develop Grufel Gulen 5 times. That's okay. I don't mind that. It's a hold. They're quite devable. The have 200 dip power trigger. Again, it's not the greatest sin in the world, but if you remember earlier, generally speaking, I do not like flat power cost triggers. Anything but that, anything but that. They're really, really bland. They're too generic. They're too boring. Relations with them, that's fine. That's good. Makes a lot of sense. Going strictly off the title, living in each other's homes, it feels like we're trying to integrate with the dwarves. So developing them, yeah, that's great. We are, probably making their rooms bigger so our trolls can actually fit inside. We are making them like us so that we're okay with that. That's great. The dip power, it's kind of okay. It's kind of okay. The reward, though, yeah, there's way too much stuff here, isn't there? Here's another general lesson. Almost always, when you are giving a reward, you want to focus in on 1 to 3 effects rather than giving out 5 or 6 weak ones. You want 1 to 3 strong or medium power effects. It's a lot more impactful and it feels a lot better when you get 1 to 3 good things that you feel rather than just getting a bunch of nonsense. Like, even just looking on this draft right now, it's just noise, right? Like, what am I getting here? I'm getting loads of stuff, but none of it means anything to me. It's just soup. Not that soup is bad, but soup is bad in this context. I'm just going to separate this out a little bit so it's actually easier to read. I think we can kind of tell that it's too much by seeing how big the box is as well. All these boxes are this size, and then this one box is literally encrypting the other row. Okay, let me just read the chat for a second. So Chaos Wolf, good suggestion. Yeah, advisor dip rep or improve would be better than 200 dip. Completely agree. Yeah, there's almost always something you can do that is more interesting than dip power. The event thing that could be done. Yeah. I don't think splitting it into 2 is necessarily a bad idea, Leaf. I don't think it's necessary. It would be necessary if you wanted to preserve all the effects. Yes, definitely. Yeah, so with the rewards thing, like Magnive says, the more rewards you have, the less each individual reward means. I completely agree with him there. It's better to have 1 to 3 strong rewards from Asia Mission rather than 5. If you look at any of my other drafts, I don't think I can think of a single mission that gives more than 3 effects in one go. Maybe 4 if you include claims. Claims don't really count. They're just like a bonus thing. Anyway, sorry. Back to this mission. So striving for tolerance, that is our other permanent modifier. If we look at this one, we're going to see a similar issue we've had before. This is way, way too strong, way too fast. We are getting +2 tolerance of heretics, +3 tolerance of heathens, -20% liberty desire, 50% native assimilation, and +1 max accepted cultures. That is like half a national idea set's worth of power. Too much stuff. So this needs basically a complete rework. I don't hate adding in the introducing that upgradable modifier here, but if we want to do that, we need to drastically reduce what it actually gives us at tier 1. So I think that's what we're going to do first. Striving for tolerance, it makes a lot of sense to introduce that here. This is our first kind of well, it's not our first kind of step because that was overcoming suspicions, but it's the first real effort towards integration rather than just being friendly. So yeah, we're going to introduce striving to tolerance. So that means we need to rework this into a state where we can actually get it to work for us. Make this box a lot bigger. Oh, I copied it, Maxim, and again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to nerf level 1. What I'm going to do, I am going to cut the Liberty Desire. I am going to cut the Native Assimilation. I'm going to keep the max accepted cultures, and I am going to give, like, let's say, +1 tolerance of heathens. The tolerance of heretics literally doesn't matter. We are goblin shamanism. The only heretic religion we have is Nusen Abse, or whatever it's called, Babin Abe. I'm sorry. I know Everest is here. I'm sorry for butchering her last. It's the hobgoblin religion. We're not getting anywhere near them. We don't care about tolerance of heretics. So what we're going to have is we're going to have there we go. +1 tolerance of heathens, +1 max accepted cultures. That feels okay to me for this point. It may be a little bit too much, maybe, but no, it's probably fine. The thing about tolerance as a like a stat is that it can be quite sort of all or nothing. If you get tolerance to the point where you can be tolerant of everybody, it's suddenly great. But before then, it doesn't mean too much, especially if you can't get any other sources of it. So like it's nice, it gives us an idea. So good question, Ender. We're going to get onto that in a second. We're going to go back to the mission first. So let me rearrange this a little bit. I am going to change the trigger. What was the suggestion before for the trigger? Yes, Chaos Wolf suggestion. Dip rep or improve would be better than 200 dip. I'm going to say let's have 1 dip rep here. So early dip rep is a trigger that I quite like because there's a lot of different ways to get dip rep. And it's it's quite interactive and it's a thing players often want to do. You can get it with magic. You can hire an advisor. Our starting ruler actually has the charismatic negotiator trait. So like you get +1 from there. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes NI. It's nice to have. It's super easy to get. It's a good requirement. So we're gonna say have 1. Now, have 1 might seem low to you. Remember that we are monstrous, so we have a -1 there. But this should be very achievable, especially with our starting ruler. Now we're going to edit the reward. We're going to take out the cost because we're not asking for that anymore. The troll minority, that's fun. I like that. I'm just going to move that to the bottom. The dwarven minorities, I like that as well. I'm going to move that to the bottom. The dwarves on the frontiers here, I think that's a bit too much. And it's also kind of overlapping with this a little bit. I get where it's coming from. We're going to get rid of it. Now, this effect here, any province colonized while you have this modifier will create a dwarven minority in the colonized province. Well, that was tied to the modifier that we just got rid of, right? So let's get rid of that. That is a fun effect, though. I do like that. There might be a place for adding that back in somewhere else, but it's not here. Now, the feudalism. So I do like the feudalism. I really like the feudalism because not having feudalism sucks, and helping the player get feudalism is a nice way that we can sort of push them along without just sort of being, overly free. We're not just giving them the institution here, but we are rewarding them with it a little bit. And we're kind of doing it in a bit of a fair way because we have devved Verkal Gulen 5 times here. We've already kind of, made them spend the power, right? So I'm going to keep that. That seems fine to me. I'm going to go like this. Oh, I fucking fucked that up, didn't I? Oh, it happened again. Okay, we're just leaving it. We're leaving it. The box is scuffed. Now, I did see somebody mention something about the +1 max accepted cultures. Yeah, it's not super relevant right now, but it is gonna be more relevant later on. We are gonna be doing a lot of cultural acceptance, so I think it's fine. Thematically, like it's a good idea, it sets us up, and it's gonna be useful to us later. One thing we could consider doing here is giving Gold Dwarf as a free accepted culture. I think the mission is already doing too much, and we don't actually have any Gold Dwarf provinces, so it doesn't really do anything for us. Like, it's just more flavor, and more flavor is good, but we've already got plenty of flavor here. Like, we're fine. We don't need it. Do we integrate our mission vassals later? I don't actually know. I have not gotten that far in this draft. Going off the themes, my assumption is no. We're meant to be vassal swarming, but it is entirely possible that we do. We'll just have to find out. Obviously, what we're doing here is a little bit different to how you would be normally drafting a mission tree, because normally when you're drafting a mission tree, you know exactly where you're going, and you don't have all these missions ahead of you that are kind of dictating your flow because you're making all the missions. What we're doing here is more kind of like a revamp, I guess, because we are taking an existing draft and we are going through it and we are making changes to make it better. Okay, so we've done these two missions. Again, I don't think they're perfect, but they're more than good enough. Yes, exactly. An extensive content review. That is what we're doing here, very much. This is round 5 of content review. So, meet the Great Bat. It wants us to own a specific province, and it wants us to have troops in that province. And then it says, event, meeting the Great Bat, and it loses us 10k troops in the province. I'm going to throw this one to you guys. What do you think of the trigger here, and what do you think of the effect? 10k is a lot. That is true. I'm just going to have a little bit of water while you think. What's the event do? Oh, excellent question. What does the event do? So, the event is it, this was kind of my setup, my t-ball into the other problem with this draft. We have a lot of really, really big event chains. I think this is the one. Yeah, here we go. So this is meeting the Great Bat. This is the effect of this mission. Okay. So basically, it's a large event chain and it's about finding the bat or, luring in the bat or whatever you want. There's a lot of problems with this from a kind of content perspective, as well as from a review perspective. So it's really fucking hard to read what's going on here. Like, I don't know if you guys can actually tell what's going on because I barely can. This here is the start event. And then depending on the option, I believe we trigger 3 different possibilities, but I don't know what the dotted lines are. There's a lot of stuff. Before we delve into this, I'm just going to quickly go back to the mission. So, the mission itself, I'm actually fine with. Own the specific province, that's okay, it's nearby. Have 10k troops. 10k is probably a bit much. We could probably put that down to 5. Like, that's okay. Oh, is the stream actually like low quality? Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me see if I can turn the quality up. Oh, is it the font size? Okay, no worries. Good. Yeah, the problem is that my monitor isn't ultra wide, so like if you guys are looking at my monitor on your monitor, it probably doesn't fit very well. Where were we? Yes, so the mission, I think it's okay. It's probably asking for too many troops, but like it's fine. it's row three. We don't need something super crazy. Sending guys to a place and then losing those guys on an expedition sounds all right. There is a question here. I think Tam said it. It almost looks like a build your own Dwarvivar expedition. It kind of does, doesn't it? It kind of does look like a build your own Dwarvivar expedition. There is a question here. Should this just be a Dwarvivar expedition? I think this probably should be just a Dwarvivar expedition, shouldn't it? It should probably spawn and then like start a Dwarvivar expedition for us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Everest has a very good point about the event chain as well. It's very obtuse, and it's got some of those sins that I was talking about before. So you remember on the first event chain, God, where have I gone? So on the first event chain, you remember how I was praising it because it was deterministic, right? It was just it wasn't giving us RNG bullshit. It was like allowing us to control our results. The problem with this one is that it's not doing that at all. We do have different options, but those different options don't clearly transmit to us what they do or how they improve the results. And then they like just send us on a kind of wild goose chase. And then we actually have a fail case here where we can just not meet the great bat, which doesn't seem great. You almost never want to put in fail states in MTs. There are situations where fail states are okay. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Like, again, Istralor, as an example, one of the missions is win the League War. If you don't win the League War, you failed the mission tree. That's kind of unavoidable. It's about being a Coronite Emperor. If you don't win the League War, yeah, you have just failed. But in this situation, we don't really want to just introduce it in a what do you call it, in an event chain. Excellent question from Everest. Was it originally a Dwarvivar expedition that got removed in a prior review? This is very, very good point. If I was reviewing this, like in the channel, I would probably go back and have a look. I don't think it was. I don't remember off the top of my head. My suggestion here would just be to turn this into an expedition. The event chain itself, it's I don't want to be like mean, and again, I'm really not trying to bash the creator here at all. It feels like an excuse to have events rather than something we actually want to interact with. So what I would do is axe this whole thing, make that into an expedition. Somewhere sauces in tears, yeah. I'm glad he left before we got to this point. And then the special expedition at the end, you can have the event where you actually meet the bat. Um, I wouldn't normally put that in the box here, but I'm going to do it just for clarity. This is another good place to like kind of put in a sort of like a note, if you like. Another general guideline that I would really suggest that you do when you're designing your mission trees is you take advantage of regional systems and you interact with stuff that is going on in the region. So for the Dwarvivar, we have the expedition system, huge defining feature of the region. Let's interact with that. Let's do stuff with it. Again, other regions have their own systems. Not every region has a system, but almost all do. For example, Canor has the Empire of Anbennar, duh, Ebensteel, the Raj, exactly, exactly. There's always stuff in the area that you can interact with, and it's not only very helpful for your design because it gives you ideas of things that you can do, it's also just fun because it makes you play the game, right? What we want to be doing with a mission tree is we want to be making the player play the game, giving them a reason to play the game. Yes, Chaos Wolf. Requirement for the next one would be have completed the expedition. Exactly. You are thinking great. So we would put in another mission, like down below there, has done the expedition, and that would make the player actually do that. I'm going to go to the left before we do that. So here we have another event, or rather another mission, Beyond Heroes Gate. So we can imagine this one is about like going out into Bulwar, okay? Now, what do we think of the requirements here then? Going off everything that we've already talked about, we're asking for manpower and we're asking for gold. Whilst you're typing, I've just realized I've been talking for an hour. Jesus Christ. Time does indeed fly when you're locked in, but I have a box of extremely chocolatey Tesco biscuits. So give me 1 second, I'm gonna get these bad boys open. You can listen to the sound of cardboard ripping. You hear that? Oh, don't say ASMR stream, I'll whisper into the mic. Hello, everybody. Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. So yeah, I think you guys basically said it. Manpower is fine, yeah. Having flat amount of manpower required for missions, again, it's not the most like super flavorful or interesting thing ever, but it's fine. It's absolutely okay to put in mission requirements. One thing I would say is I would say try not to ever ask for percentage manpower. There are situations where it's okay, but almost always, if you ask for a certain percentage of manpower, like say, player must have 75% manpower, what you encourage them is just to do nothing at all. And that is the opposite of what we want to be doing, right? We don't want the player to be forced to sit there not playing the game. And the game is, a war game, ultimately. The player wants to be doing wars most of the time. Don't tell the player to sit on their ass. Telling them to have an amount of manpower, that's fine, because they can get an amount of manpower. They can scale up and get more manpower, and that gets them their manpower faster. Nothing gets them to 75% manpower faster unless they've got some sort of flat manpower gain. Or, slacken or whatever. That was just an aside. So yeah, the manpower is fine. We're not going to change it. The gold does suck. So we don't want the gold at all. We need a different requirement. I'm going to move away from the mission for 1 second to answer Stu's question. So, Stu, how does this apply to like professionalism requirements? So, one thing I do when I make a mission that is going to ask for professionalism is I almost always bundle my professionalism requirement to another requirement. So, if you've ever played any of my mission trees, any of the missions that ask for professionalism, they almost always say, or has army tradition X, or has mill power X. So I know I've been ragging on like power requirements a lot, but one of the valid use cases for power requirements is like as a bypass option, basically. So if you have a trigger that is, possibly very hard for a player to do sometimes, like if you're asking for 25% army professionalism, you could have or have 400 mil power as a bypass option, so that it's very costly if they don't have the professionalism, but they're not just kind of hard stuck, say if they had to slacken because they're in a death war or whatever. Anyway, so we need another requirement for this mission. Beyond Heroes Gate, the name and also the event effect make me feel like we are going out into the world. So what possible requirements could we have here that are suitable for that? Again, while you think, I'm going to have a biscuit. You can listen to the crinkles. Okay, so there's some good suggestions here. Let's go through. So diplomats as a suggestion. That is not a bad idea, and it's quite an interesting trigger. However, I don't think it's suitable at this point in the mission tree. The problem with diplomats as a trigger is that while there are multiple sources of diplomats, this early in the game, there's not that many we could reasonably expect the player to have. If we were asking for an extra diplomat, we're kind of basically sort of pigeonholing them into going, say, diplomatic ideas. And we already know that the player is probably quite far behind on tech, so it's a bit demanding, really. The has positive relations with X nations in Bulwar. I quite like that. That does make a good amount of sense. Um, the allies with capital in Bulwar, that would make sense if we weren't monstrous. The problem is we are monstrous, so the only people we're probably going to be able to ally are gnolls. And I don't think that's thematically what we want because we're all about being friends with everybody, right? If we go out and ally Zoka, that's a little bit of a flavor fail. We're here like, yeah, peace and love. Meanwhile, Zoka's like fucking eating somebody's skull. Yeah, he's just misunderstood, guys. He's fine, really. I like the oh, okay, yeah, no, that is a good point. We could befriend the harpies. That wouldn't be terrible. The problem is we can't really rely on the harpies always being alive. They are often just dead. What I would probably do is I would probably say has plus 60 improved relations with, like 2 nations in Bulwar, something like that. Um, Also, this could be a nice place. Scamp, if you say anything bad about harpies, I'm leaving Sarhal. I'll go to Canor. I'm warning you. What I would probably say is have something like 60 relations with 2 nations in Bulwa, but this could also be a nice place for us to incorporate the magic rework. So I know I said I wasn't going to talk too much about the magic rework, but there is a whole new kind of depth of spell that we can introduce here as a requirement. So there is a diplomatic cantrip we could say has cast this spell. That would be pretty cool. Oh, I'm being bribed to leave now, am I? Oh, interesting. I can't remember what the spell's called off the top of my head, so I'm just gonna write the trigger as has cast the Diplo cantrip. Now, we need to go have a look at this event, don't we? If you are anything like me, we are probably getting a little bit apprehensive about what we're going to find. So let's go look for a new diplomatic party. I literally have no idea where it is, by the way. So, oh, okay, right, we found it. So this is where we get really complicated. This is not just a event chain. This is actually an event system. So what we're looking at, if any of you have ever played Vangheim, this is the same event system that Vangheim has. Or if you have played any of the New Hockey Pantheon nations, this is that same event system that they have. No, this did not get a system review. It didn't need a system review because the system was already approved prior. This is literally like a direct one-to-one port of the other system. So systematically, it's fine. It's just being misapplied content wise here. So this is our job as content reviewers to basically say this is in the wrong place now, if that makes sense. How do you design good systems? Excellent question. That is not the topic of today's web session. I am not a systems reviewer. Go bug Ellie. So I'm going to try and give you the cliff notes on what it is that we're actually looking at here. Basically, this system is a kind of generic like events journey system. So what it is we go places, events happen to us along the way, and then we get an ending event. There are a number of issues with the way that it's implemented right here, though. There are not enough generic events. There are only 4 here. There's a couple more specific ones, but what this is going to mean is that on the trip, we're going to end up just seeing the same events over and over again. If this isn't making any sense to you, don't worry. It's just way too much work to explain the whole system to you. I'm the one who originally designed this, so you're just going to have to trust me that it's not really being applied very well here. If we want to use this system for the mission tree, what we need to do is we need to really use this system for the mission tree. If you make a system specifically for your mission tree should be in no small part defined by that system. So again, I'm going to use my own tree as an example. If you've played Vainclimb, you know that Vainclimb is really, really involved with the hunts, right? You do a lot of hunts, they're spawned as rewards, your missions ask for you to do them, you need to do them to progress the mission tree. That is true to a degree here. If we were to look at the later missions, we would see that we do need to do these expeditions to actually kind of see what's going on. But the problem is we're kind of thematically muddled because we have this system, but we also have the expeditions and we also have the unique event chains, and there's just all a bit too much going on. This is not something that is like an easy fix, so I'm not going to fix it right now. We would be here for hours just trying to solve this, but I figured it was a good idea just to bring up because obviously when people make mission trees, they do want to design systems for their mission trees, and that's fine, but if you're going to do it, commit to it. Right, let me just read through the comments. Yes, this one is being recorded. We have a lovely moderator here, a dangerous situation, who is recording it for us. So, comment by Ender. So it isn't okay to dip your toes into different existing systems if they would fit for a handful of missions in your tree. Um, it's a bit hard to generalize like that. It depends on what you mean. Like, if you mean a regional system, you can interact with a regional system just for like 1 or 2 missions. If we take 333 as an example, 333 has a mission where they just do a little bit of the rending. Like, that's fine. But if you're going to make a custom system specifically for your mission tree, no, it shouldn't just be for like 2 missions or 3 missions. It should be for your mission tree. It should be something you're really involved and really invested in, and it should be built in and throughout the tree. Again, it's different from regional systems. Like, you could just dip your toe into a regional system while you're in the area. That's fine. That's good, even. Interacting with regional systems as part of your missions makes for good content. Okay, moving on. So again, that does need fixing. It's a bit beyond us to fix right now. We're just going to look at the next mission. So here we have Provoking the Hateful. It wants us to have a spy network, an Askasur and Segadir, and it wants Segadir to have a negative opinion of us or their ruler is cruel. What do we think of those triggers? Obviously, provoking the hateful, what is that thematically like kind of invoking? Well, we're kind of riling up these hateful bastards, right? Like, they're mean, they don't like us, we're going to provoke them a bit. Maybe that seems a little bit mean for our friendly trolls, but I think it's fine. Sometimes you gotta meet fire with fire, as it were. Anyway, yes, the triggers. So a bit easy since you're going to have negative relations anyway. Yeah, I'd probably agree. It is a little bit easy, but it's also a little bit easy and also too hard at the same time. The reason I say that it's too hard at the same time is because 50 spy network in 2 places is an absolute fucking ass of a trigger. This is somewhat my personal bias slipping in, but I really dislike spy network triggers when they are high, because you can get really, really easily RNG screwed as a player. Yeah, exactly. It's not even hard, it's just RNG. Yeah, exactly. You could have absolutely no problem with this. You could just put your 2 diplomats in those 2 places, spy on them, boom, get the spy network, and you're fine, you're done. Or you could keep getting to 30 and keep getting discovered over and over again, and you're stuck on this mission forever. Sucks. Absolutely sucks. When I content review trees, if I ever see any spy network requirement that is over like 40 and it's not like a spying based tree, I tell them to reduce it. I fucking hate it. I would expect this to be 30 at the most. And I might even suggest having an option to make it lower. Like, for example, one thing I think Kane did that I've seen Kane do before is, sorry, just to say, I'm not solely crediting Kane here. I'm sure other people have done this as well, but just specifically, I remember Kane doing it. He had an option where it's like, have 30 spy network in this place, or have 20 and have a spy master, like the advisor. 25 would be absolutely fine. You could do 25 because obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, you can't be discovered below 25. So if you suggest 25, it's basically safe. Yes, and I completely agree with Everest here. Never above 40 unless it's like a spying tag and you've got spy network modifiers. Like I think so again, I don't want to pick on anybody's work. This I'm going to mention a tree here that I do really like it, but the start is a bit of a bastard. So the Yawn Z tree, the Devouring Path Zia guys who got a tree recently, their tree is really cool, and you do a lot of spying stuff. But there is like an opening of 3 missions, and each of the missions wants you to have 50 spy network on the command. It's fucking awful. It almost made me quit the tree. None of that, please. None of that. So we're going to reduce this. Okay, now the has minus 100 opinion of us, or their ruler is cruel. Well, the ruler is cruel, but we can't really influence their ruler at all. So it's not really a requirement in any sort of natural sense. It's not the end of the world to keep it if the other requirement is actually very achievable. Obviously, minus 100 opinion of us is actually very achievable, but like Edward said before, it's a little bit easy. They probably hate us already. They're probably going to rival us even. So what I suggest we do here, instead of has minus opinion of us, we can do the All Faithful. There we go. So we're asking for them to be scornfully insulted or insulted for no DLC. Little thing here, when you are designing mission trees, if you're a new designer, don't worry too much about this. I don't expect you to know all the DLC, but there are certain triggers that are locked behind DLC. Anbennar does not require all DLC to play, so we do expect might be kind of like a too hard word, but we do encourage DLC bypasses for specific mechanics, Scornful Insult being one of them. Yes, like Everest said, if you remember which triggers are DLC, put in all requirements. If you don't know them, don't worry too much. Your content review will probably tell you about them. Okay, now we have another event. So we're starting to hit. Oh, sorry. Is there not a world where these nations are dead by this point and the mission tree softlocks? Yes, there is a point. There is a possibility. What you would want to do is you want to have a bypass. I wouldn't normally expect that to like show up on the mission tree draft necessarily. Like I would just expect the like the designer to code in like or they don't exist. Um, but you are absolutely right. Like there should be a bypass condition for if they're not alive. Wait. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So the reward. So the reward is again an event. We're starting to reach a point where we've got way too much event density. This is something that I think a lot of like new designers have a tendency to do because you kind of have it in your head that events give you story, events are cool, we should have loads of events, then all my players can read all of my events and they can see my great story and it'll be amazing. I was personally a victim of this when I made Naleni. I had way too many events. If you have events, it becomes noise. It becomes annoying. It's just pop up, right in the face. Too much going on. You will run into the writing haters crowd, and they will say too many words, didn't read, and you will feel very sad about it. So when we're going through a mission tree, ideally, when we are designing our missions, we don't really want more than a third of our missions firing events, probably even less than that if we are heavily relying on events for systems, which again, we really are here. If we were to count it up, and I'm not actually going to, but if we were to count it up now, by this point in the draft, about what, mission 10, mission 9, I think we've probably fired about 20 events. That's a fucking lot of events, right? Yeah, excellent point by Bromar. Yes, missions do get localization. You can tell the story in the missions. You might think that players don't read those. Players do read those if they care about the story. If they don't care about the story, they won't read anything anyway. Another good point by Scamp, yeah, events are good if the player is making a decision from the event. If it's just one option, then it can option just be mission text. Yes, yes, I didn't mention that. That's a really, really good point. With events, if you're firing an event, it should be almost always because you are making the player make a decision. The only time I would really expect that to not be the case is like with really, really big like narrative events, like, you know, like capstone events or like sort of mid-tree capstones, stuff like that. Okay. We need to actually find out what this event is now. So a successful provocation. Oh, look at that. It's actually in the place I expected it to be. So here we go. A successful provocation. We've provoked the hateful rulers of Segedar and Asgusir who have oppressed our goblin friends for too long. Soon they will declare war on us, but that will allow us to free their subjects from tyranny. Blah, 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 blah. Option A, free our friends. So Segedar declares war on us. Every province of theirs that isn't their hold spawns goblin rebels allied to us. We get the modifier Righteous Rage for 10 years, and we gain a general. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can actually see this. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. What do we think of this? My initial impression is that making somebody declare war on us is really cool. I really like that. That's neat. However, the modifier we get and the rebels are possibly a little bit too much, right? I said this before. We want to help the player with their problems. We don't want to solve their problems for them. If we spawn goblin rebels on every single one of their provinces minus their hold, that's not a war. Like, that's a massacre. We're going to spawn like fucking 40 rebels on top of them. Their army is going to walk and die, and we're going to win. Absolutely no problem at all. Because they're probably not going to have their allies either, right? Because they've declared on us. If we have any allies, which we probably don't, but we might, like we might have an ally like a harpy, we're just going to steamroll them. That's much too easy. We have a good mill. We shouldn't be like just handing the player a free win like this. I do like the spawning rebels. Like, I really like that as an effect. It's a very cool idea. What I would probably do is I would get rid of the temp mod. It's just really strong and we don't really need it. I think getting the goblin general is probably okay. Like, that makes sense. I would just spawn, yeah, like 1 or 2 stacks of rebels, have a general. That sounds good to me. The rebels will probably die. That's fine. We don't really expect them to do anything, but it's going to be a little bit of a problem for them, right? Um, the actual general stats, 4-2, 4-2, that looks fine to me. It's probably like not perfect, but it's good enough that it would be something that I would leave for balance personally. When you're designing a tree, don't stress too much about getting the balance numbers perfectly right. Balance reviewers listening to this probably going to hate me, but that's what they're for. That's their job. You could think that you've gotten it perfectly right, and then they'll tell you it sucks and you need to change it anyway. They don't say it like that, obviously. They're much nicer than that. But like balance is going to tell you how to get it balanced anyway. Just as long as it's not ridiculously overpowered, you don't need to worry about it too much. There was one time. I'm sorry, I'm going on a slight tangent now, but there was one time that I made a mission tree and it was balance approved with no changes, and I thought that I was a god. And then somebody came along later and complained about it in balance general, and it turns out it was broken as fuck. So don't rely on yourself. Just be okay. No, no, like I'm not blaming you, Edward. Like this is not slander for you. This is just a funny story. Don't stress too much about balance, is what I'm trying to say. Just get it kind of generally all right. Your content review will tell you if it's unbalanced. Your regional reviewers will tell you if it's unbalanced. Balance review will sort it out, probably, most of the time. So we're just going to change this a little bit. There we go. That might be a little bit unbalanced, but it's fine. Cool effect. We get some rebels. That's great. Overall, I don't actually hate this being an event. Like, I think that is somewhat of a situation where an event kind of is warranted, because otherwise the precise effect is a little bit unclear. Um, but take it or leave it. I think there's probably other places in this draft that don't need events that have events, or rather than the missions themselves having events that don't need events, there's probably places where we have too many events coming off of events, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm just going to pause here very quickly. I am getting messages from the person who this session was supposed to be for. Also got a message from my boyfriend, but who cares about that, right? Where were we? Okay, so provoking the hateful, that's fine. That war is cool, that's great. Integrating the dream. So Shadow Dreamer doesn't exist. Owns Dreamer's Hollow, has 20 dev in Drakeclaw Orc provinces, event Tale of the Dream. Now, this is something that I wouldn't necessarily expect you guys to cotton onto right now, unless you're very familiar with the map of the area. Ender's got it. Yeah, brilliant. So my problem with this mission is that it's really oddly sequenced. This is something that I don't think I've mentioned too much before, but a big problem. Sorry, that's a bad way to frame it. I shouldn't frame it like a problem. A big thing that I think players often forget when they are, mission tree makers often forget when they're designing their mission trees is pacing and kind of flow. So it's not just about the flow of the narrative, it's about the flow of the missions themselves. I'm just going to rewind for a second because I see Just Thule is asking a good question about the previous mission. So, is there a concern where this could happen to the player? Yeah, that effect should be blocked from happening to player Sagadir. I wouldn't be too worried about it actually ever happening. I don't think AI Grizzerhood could ever trigger that, but it should actually just have like an AI equals no block in it. You are absolutely right. Okay, where was I? Yes, so integrating the dream. Overall, as a mission, it's fine. Integrating orcs makes a lot of sense. The problem is where it's coming in the mission tree. It's on the same row as our mission about fighting Sagadir, but the orcs are way, way, way to the west of Sagadir. We need to have beaten Sagadir for us to be anywhere near these guys, unless they've migrated like an absolute fucking mile. The other thing is, and I saw Ender mention this, yes, there is a goblin clan, a goblin tribe, that is way, way closer to us. They start just north of Segadir, and they're the ones that can kill you in the early game. Where is our mission about integrating the goblins? Yes, exactly. Greedy Grin. So, again, the mission itself, kind of fine, but it basically just sort of needs moving down. Now, that's a little bit hard at the moment because there is a whole bunch of shit below here that we can't really move too well. So what I'm going to sort of do is I'm just going to kind of hack at the draft for a little bit just to kind of get it moving. No, I'm not going to do the whole tree, but there is a section that I want to get to before I stop, because there's quite like an important thing I want to talk about, and I want to get to like at least row 5. So we've moved this down. Obviously, this is not its final location, right? So don't think that I have moved this because this is where I want it to be at the end of the day. We're just chopping and changing to get things moving. What we need here is we need a mission about our goblin buddies. We need to befriend our goblin buddies. If we have a little look, we can see that we actually do have a mission about our goblin buddies. Or rather, in a way, we have a mission about our goblin buddies. So beginning reconciliation over here. Obviously, we're skipping a little bit because it's what we're talking about. We can see that we are asking Greedy Grin to not exist. We're asking to own one of their culture provinces, and we're asking to have goblins integrated. And we're, there's an event and stuff. That's fine. We're going to move that a little bit. Oh my god, so many arrows. This is a nightmare. Okay, so we're moving all that below. Like that's gonna have to go way down. We're gonna jump back up in a second because this structure here I kind of like. This being a bottleneck makes sense, right? Because Segadir, they're our big enemy in the middle. We got to get past them. It has to happen. Stuff we're doing with the goblins, can that be below or alongside Segadir? I think that can be alongside, right? Like we don't have to be Segadir in order to talk to the goblins. Yeah, exactly, alongside. So we can move this up, can't we? So we can have that way higher. Now, what about what the mission is actually asking for? So it's asking for Greedy Grin to not exist. It's asking us to own a Gold-Tooth Goblin province. It's asking us to have integrated goblins. Why is it asking us to conquer them? Where is that coming from? Now, to be clear, I'm not necessarily saying that it's a bad thing that it's asking us to conquer them, but I want to kind of see the thematic lead through because there needs to be a reason why we're doing the things we're doing, right? Obviously, conquest is very natural. We want to be conquering generally. But in this case, we're in a little bit of an awkward situation because we've been befriending people and now we're conquering goblins. So, where's the conquest coming from? Well, we can kind of see that the conquest is coming from, yeah, exactly, rivals with the gold dwarfs. Exactly, that's where it's coming from. So this needs to be at least below the gold dwarf stuff, doesn't it? Let's see if I can fix this mission box again. Oh no. Oh my god, I did it. Holy fucking shit. Would you look at that? I mean, it's still ugly, but like we did it. So this kind of needs to be below this, which means we need to link it with our arrows. Another thing about mission trees that people often kind of do wrong is that they sort of have missions float, or they have missions that are connected, but they don't really flow from one to the other very well. I'm going to pick on a draft that I remember content reviewing a while ago. So um, I'm going to pick on Kane again for a bad reason this time. Farinine, when I reviewed Farinine, cool draft, but it had a bit of a problem in that it kind of had like a left side and a right side. And the right side and the left side were divorced. There was no connections between the two. So you could progress down one side without doing the other side. Theoretically, there's nothing wrong with that, but the issue is that the missions were wanting to us to have done stuff on the other side. So the particular example that I'm bringing up here is that there was a mission on the bottom right that basically said we must have passed a certain parliament issue like 5 times. The issue was that you didn't get the special parliament issue unless you'd done a mission on the left, which just doesn't flow very well, right? Like it's hard to see how the narrative is progressing from getting this thing that we must use over here if it's not connected. That's just a long-winded way of saying that missions should be narratively connected. They shouldn't be disjointed. The narrative should flow through the lines. This does have a bit of a side effect of making your narratives often fairly linear. That's fine. That's just a limitation of EU4 as a game and a storytelling vehicle. If you are a fantastic writer, you've got ways to get around that. If you are a fantastic designer, you've got ways to get around that. But if you can't, it's okay. Linear narratives can be fun. Now, I still don't quite know exactly where I want to put this. I want to put this on this row because I want it to be alongside the Sagadir thing. But I want to connect it to this mission here. So I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to put it over here. Now, you might notice the structure of our MT is looking a little bit ugly. We're really, really left side biased. It's okay, we'll fix it later. We're just going to go ahead and delete some of these arrows here. Okay, so we've got a fairly decent row here. Whilst we're talking about arrows, let's just have a little look at this arrow here. So we were just talking. Oh, sorry, somebody's pinging me. Hello. Idea, mission after the bat and living in each other's homes. Have done an expedition, have ride or grieve again. An enemy of my friend is an enemy of me. After the bat and living in each other's homes. Mm, yeah, I mean, that's possibly doable. I am. I do think you're right that the like the greedy grin going straight to conquering them possibly feels a little bit fast, but I think it's probably okay. What was I going to say? Yes, I was talking about this line here. So, from meet the great bat to provoking the hateful, why does provoking the hateful require meeting the great bat? What's the reason for this? And again, I'm asking that not in the sense of like, this is bad, this is wrong, but rather like, we need to try and understand. So, to me, initially, I don't think that necessarily needs to be connected. Yes, exactly. An explanation is required. What I would lean towards doing is just deleting this arrow. I'm just going to redraw these arrows very quickly. This is a very, very minor tip for mission tree drafting, by the way, but when you are making arrows, try not to always begin the arrow in the same place, because if you have like you were just looking at, if you have an arrow here and they're all coming out the middle, it becomes quite hard to read. what I like to do is try and separate them out so it's clear what's reading from what to what. Like you, when you look at your draft, you probably understand where the arrows go, but me as a reviewer, when I look at your draft, I don't understand where the arrows go, right? It needs to be visually clear for me as well as you. So where were we? Yeah, so we're going outside, we're reconciling with goblins. I know creatively sent a message up say there. I will say that integrating goblins by itself, I sort of assumed it would be done by the start date since they live with you. Blah blah blah. Yeah, yeah. I mean that's pretty fair. I don't think we need to be doing too much goblin integration because yeah, it is to an extent kind of assumed. You think I'm reviewing Blastonor? Good luck, Edward. Right, sorry, my voice is getting tired again. I'm just gonna have some more water and another biscuit. Okay. So I don't think that mission is perfect. Oh my god, I just got biscuits stuck in my throat. I'm sorry, that was disgusting. What was I saying? Yeah. So I don't think that mission is perfect right now, but I don't want to just keep hammering on it. We could be here for a while doing that. I think having an event there is probably overkill now that we've moved it. What I want to do though is I just want to move on to the next row because there are a couple missions here that have stuff that could definitely be improved, right? So row 5, we've got these two missions here. We've got a source of grain and we've got a mysterious bean. And both of these missions are basically the same thing, right? Or at least the same kind of template of a mission. So if we just take a look at a source of grain here, what do we think of this mission? So the requirement is we or our allies or subjects have 2 production of grain, and then we get a permanent modifier, which is food for our bellies, which is minus 20% army maintenance modifier. Any opinions on this? Again, be nice. Yes, so it is as in 2 total goods produced of grain between you and your allies and subjects. Yes, exactly. Uh, quite strong. Yes, it is quite strong. So when I look at this mission, it's got 2, maybe 3 problems. So the first problem is that the trigger is overly simplistic. Um, it's something that we are going to find difficult to do ourselves as well. 2 production of grain, if you're playing a nation in, a normal part of the world, is not very difficult. That's what 10 dip dev worth of grain provinces. That's not hard. Grain's everywhere. However, it's a lot more difficult when you are a serpent spine nation because you do not have grain as a natural trade good. I think Vocal Gulan might have a grain province. Let me just check that quickly. Yes, okay, yeah. So you're right. The closest grain province to you as Grizzahud is in Azkasur, and it is a 2 dip dev grain province out there. There are a number of other ones along the river, but if we want to complete that, we either need to befriend somebody out there, or we need to go out there and conquer that. The other thing is, the mission's only asking for one thing. Now, there are some among us who would say that missions that only have one requirement can be interesting, when that requirement is like deceptively difficult. Like it looks simple, but it's deceptively difficult. There is a particular mission in the Lizardfolk Formable, Katala Shire, that I am thinking of that Scamp really likes and I really hate, and I tried to get rid of it. But it's like own this one province, but the one province is on the other side of the world. If you want to do something like that, okay, that's fine. But I don't like it here. I like my missions, generally speaking, to ask for at least two things. It can be one main thing and then a second, like, kind of smaller flavor thing, or it can be, two equal things. That's fine. But I like to have at least two things to do, if not more. And generally speaking, as we are progressing through the tree, I like to be asking for more and more things in more and more harder ways. Okay, so let's just go through the comments quickly. Uh, you are right that this is deceptively difficult, but I don't think that it is deceptively difficult in a kind of like a fun and achievable way. As to why we need grain, if you remember our themes, our theme here, Grandis Feast Day, is about collecting ingredients. So I think it's perfectly narratively congruent and very thematic that we are looking for grain. That makes complete sense to me. I'm not at all surprised about why we're asking for it. Makes perfect sense. I just don't like how we're asking for it in this particular scenario. I don't like that it's gating our progress down the mission tree. If we are expecting it to be done by allying people outside of Bulwa, or rather outside of the spine, we have a bit of a problem in that we're still monstrous right now. I know there is the whole diplomatic party thing above it, but it's still going to be hard to get allies. If we want to do this like this, I would move this down. You see, we've got a mission here called Befriending the. Hello, can you still hear me? I'll be back. Oh, amazing. Woo. Fantastic. Okay. What the fuck was I saying? I was talking about the modifier. So it's the same problem we've already talked about, right? It's giving out a permanent modifier. It feels a bit unearned. It's too strong, and it's not very interesting. We kind of need to rework that reward entirely, in my opinion. I'm not going to do that right now because we've already been talking for 2 hours, but this mission, in terms of like what changes I would like to see to it, I'd like to see another requirement, like as in just a second one, and I'd also just like to see the main requirement changed, or if we don't want to change it, I'd just like to see it moved down so it's more achievable. Once we're able to actually be friends with people outside of the caves and ally people out there, this is going to be really easy, right? If we just ally some big fat guy with like 4 grain provinces, we get this immediately. But that's very difficult for us to do while we're still a fucking monster. So I'm just going to cut this out of the tree here. And I would just move that somewhere down there. Like, we'd have to fit it in later, obviously. Now, here, a mysterious being. We, our allies or subjects, have two production of coffee. So this one has the same kind of problem, right? Um, if anything, I think it's kind of worse because there's only like two coffee provinces in Bulwa. Now, one of them is right outside Segadir, so it's not like impossible to just grab it and then dev it up to 10. Um, but it is still kind of pushing you to go outside of the caves. What might be more interesting here, rather than just asking us to have allies or subjects producing coffee, maybe we could do something with Asgasur here. So if you remember, we've got this mission here, foes into friends, because what have we done? Well, we've had Segadir attack us, right? Segadir has attacked us. We've probably subjugated them or conquered them directly, one of the two. Presumably conquered them directly because our other mission wants us to do that. What does that mean for Segadir's best friend, Asgasur? We now border them. What's our relationship with them going to be like? When you're thinking about your missions, these are the sort of questions that you can consider, right? Think about if you're ever stuck on what to do for a mission, think about the kind of geopolitical ramifications of what you've already done are. So we've conquered Sagadir. Asgard is probably not going to like that very much, but we are the friendly trolls. So maybe there is something that we can do to make them be friends with us again. Or we're just going to have to conquer them, right? Now, I don't think we really want to conquer them. Maybe we do. That's up for you. That's up to your discretion as a creator. But what I might suggest we do is if we move things around a little bit here. Sorry, bear with me. So if we, I've just copied that instead. Didn't mean to do that. Oh, I think vassalizing them is a bridge too far, but I think hopefully we can maybe be a little bit friendly with them. It is perhaps something we'd have to check with the regional team on. It is very good that you do raise that about that previously being rejected by regional team. What we don't want to do at a content stage is kind of like override the desires of the region, but we do need to be realistic about what our missions are actually asking us to do. Sorry, I'm just finishing a biscuit. So you have a good question there, Edna. What if Azkasur is already at war with Jajari at this point of clicking, or doesn't it exist anymore? So rather than specifically asking it to be Azkasur, what we can do is we can say the owner of the province of Azkasur, and then we do something with them, right? How could we make somebody pissed off at us want to like us? Well, we can combine themes here, okay? So our theme is about liking people and making them like us, and our theme is also about getting ingredients. So rather than our mission, a mysterious beam, just being about having coffee, maybe our mission, a mysterious being, can be about buying the coffee from our new friend in Ask a Sir, and that makes them like us because, okay, Segadir's gone, these guys conquered them, but it was an offensive war by Segadir, so like it's not like we're, conquerors. They were the ones who attacked us, and now these new guys, well, they want to buy our coffee. This is great. Adri, it's because you're Kanakor. Kanakor has rights here. Now, The question is where we kind of fit this in. We're having a little bit of an issue with structure at the moment because we have a whole lot of missions below and we're having to move things around. The problem with being friends with anybody outside of the Dwarvala, like I've said before, is that we are still monstrous. So really, we want to be demonsterizing at this point if we're not already. Thank you, Everest. Bye bye. I'm just going to jig these missions around just a little bit, seeing if I can make them look a way that looks nice to me. What is this box? Oh my god. I hate this program. Absolutely nightmarish thing. I you have a good point about the gnolls might have taken over much of Bulwa by now, but I don't think it's a huge problem. I think it's okay. I think we should still be aiming to demonstrize. We just need to keep in mind that perhaps these provinces will be owned by gnolls. Obviously, like the game world is a sandbox, right? And there are going to be dynamic areas. It's not always going to look the same, especially as we go further into the game. That's completely natural. But I think that realistically, for what we want to be doing, demonstrizing makes a whole lot of sense. And putting the getting stuff from outside missions after the demonstrizing also makes a whole lot of sense. If it reassures you at all as well, even though I have seen Zoka do fairly well in, quite a lot of games, I don't think I've ever actually seen them win Bulwa. I almost always see Sun Owls win Bulwa. I think you're better off going for demonstrization. So, sorry, I realize I did that all quietly. So what I've done here is I've rearranged the structure a little bit to be a little bit kind of nicer to my eye. So what I've done, we've got these kind of missions here, and then I've put these two missions about being friends with people, and I've led them into befriending the world, because what we've done is we've reconciled the dwarves with the goblins, we've gone out the hero's gate, great. Now we're going out into the world. Is it too early for demonstrization? Yes, good point. It is a bit early for demonstrization. We are probably not at the tech where we can do that. How can we solve that problem? What we can do is we can start demonstrization as an effect in the earlier missions. So this mission here, say, beginning reconciliation. If we can actually find the event for that one, it's somewhere here. The reconciliation of gold-toothed goblins and gold dwarves. If you have a look at this, you can see that we have the same modifier problem again. We are, as a reward here for this one, getting plus 20% improved relations. I don't think I need to bang this drum again, right? Like, we get the point here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that. And what's perhaps more fun is we can do something like this. I've definitely spelled monstrosity wrong. Just in case you can't see that, I'll zoom in. But so what we're doing as a reward there is we're starting demonstrization, or if it's already started, we are losing a big extra chunk of the monstrosity. That's great. So now we're not worried about the tech gate for the next mission, right? Now, completing demonstrization, okay, that might still be a little bit of a time gate. So maybe we don't want to say we have to have completed the demonstration. Maybe instead we can say is at least semi-monstrous. Have started would be an idea, but if we remember, we've started it by effect in the previous mission, so it's not really a requirement anymore at that point. We don't generally want to be asking for things that we are sure the player has already done, because it's just a bit of a like a pointless thing, right? Ender, to answer your question, no. So the mission reward is supposed to be that it starts demonstrizing, but as a backup reward, if the player's already started because they were slow getting there, they'll lose 30 monstrousness. If they're already demonstrized, well, screw them, they were too slow. Now, again, with the reward, the modifier, we don't need to talk about this. We're going to get rid of it again. To be fair, this could be a place for permanent modifier. But I would rather not see a permanent modifier there. The enable Bulwari diplomatic mission. So again, that is the system over here. We don't have time to delve into that right now, I'm afraid. We're just going to leave that as it is. I realize I'm getting a little bit fast here. It's because I realize I've been talking for 2 hours and I kind of want to wrap up, but I don't want to just sort of stop until I got these rows looking okay. So, is at least semi-monstrous is a fairly okay requirement. It might be a little bit of a time gate, but I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Normally, time gates are fairly bad, right? Generally speaking, you want to be avoiding time gates, especially lengthy time gates. Sometimes it's somewhat unavoidable, and in some contexts, it can be okay. In the context of the game we're playing here, we do need to remember that a lot of what we're doing is just slowly colonizing along the spine. So the middle Dwarvavar, we're just kind of slowly colonizing this place, right? We are sort of naturally time gated by the mechanics of the game. Having a mission here that is a little bit of a time gate in that context, it's not really the worst thing in the world because you're not really making the player wait because they're already sort of waiting, if that makes sense. This is a little bit of an exception situation, so like I wouldn't generally suggest you design with this sort of philosophy in mind of time gates are okay. Do try and avoid them where you can, but sometimes waiting is just waiting. Like you have to wait. It's okay. I would like to see another requirement on this mission though. As I said before several times, always like to see at least 2 requirements on my missions. Befriending the world, something like this, kind of sounds like we ought to be having relations with people outside again. Maybe it kind of sounds like we ought to be having, I don't know, focused dip, high dip rep, relations, yeah, stuff like that. I'm not going to pencil in anything specifically. I'm just going to leave it as double question mark. Number of allies, I think, is a bit hard. Might be okay, might be doable. It depends on what exactly the event chain is doing for us. So I know I said that we're not delving into the event chain right now, but we need to be careful with a mission like this that we're not asking for the requirement to be something that the event chain helps us with, if that makes sense. Like if the Bulwari diplomatic mission event chain is about us going out into Bulwar and making our first friend in Bulwar, it's really weird if the mission makes us friends in Bulwa, like makes us make friends in Bulwa, if that makes sense. Yes, Ender. So you absolutely can do test games later on, and speaking as a content reviewer, I would really, really highly recommend that if you do play through your mission tree after it's been approved and you feel like there are problems with it, change it. Ping your content reviewer, ping your balance reviewer, whoever, and just change the mission tree. Make it better based off feedback you get from testers and just your own playing. Now, we're going to very quickly move on to foes into friends here. So this is a mission that basically just wants us to have won the war against Sagadir and to have fixed their hold. That seems fine to me. That's okay. Generally, again, with a conquest mission, don't just ask for conquest. I like here that we are asking for Sagadir to be fixed. That's a nice additional thing. It's a nice way to interact with a regional mechanic. I think we can fix holds as trolls. I'm pretty sure we can. I really hope I'm not lying about that. If we can, great. If we can't, oh dear. Yeah, only hordes and blocks can't. Brilliant, yes. I thought we could, but I wasn't sure. The reward I actually kind of like. Um, the so you might notice it says the word permanent again, which might be, flashing alarm bells for you. But this one is a permanent province modifier. I like that. Trolls helping with upgrading the hold. The name's a bit long, but it's fine. Don't worry. Production efficiency plus 10% to Sagadir and Vehicle Gulan. This is actually a case where I think the buff is a little bit too bad. 10% production efficiency in 2 provinces. It's a bit naff. I mean, I guess that holds, so like it's not too bad, but yeah, it doesn't really feel good as a player. The Troll Maniaci in Sagadir, that's cool. Revealing Bulwar, that makes an amount of sense, but I think we should probably be doing that somewhere else. This is probably a result of us moving the tree around. So like again, this isn't necessarily on the designer initially. But I think that reveals Bulwar should probably be somewhere over here, like beyond Hero's Gate. That should reveal Bulwar. Yes, good point. Yes, production efficiency does do nothing in Vertical Gulan because Vertical Gulan produces gold. Howie, I think you have a good suggestion. Yeah, construction time and cost would be better and more flavorful. So let's change it to that. I'm just gonna make this a big number because I suck at this. Now that's probably OP because construction cost affects hold upgrade time, but it's fine. Balance can sort it. Okay, so I think we already talked about a source of grain and a mysterious bean, didn't we? So the rewards are a little bit uninspired. We need something more interesting than just giving us a permanent modifier. Perhaps it could be like a very small permanent modifier. I got along with another additional effect, like a source of grain. Maybe that gives us manpower, something like that. A mysterious bean, maybe that gives us magic. Coffee is for the mage, right? Or is that tea? I think it's coffee. So maybe that gives us mana. That could be cool. And if you remember what I was saying, these missions, they shouldn't just be about get this trade good. It should be mixed in with something else. So the mysterious bean mission, that can be mixed in with our relations with Azkasur and the owner of Azkasur. A source of grain, well, we need to think about something for that, right? Okay. I think I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done in this tree, but I think hopefully we've gone through a lot of kind of fundamentals of mission tree design today, and hopefully you've kind of learned something about my design process at the very least. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I've talked about today that they want to ask me now? Where is the pictures of the biscuit? I will get you a picture of the biscuits. Bear with me 1 second. There you go, those are my biscuits. There you go, those are my biscuits. I hope you all enjoyed this. I don't think anybody's asked me any questions other than the biscuit ones. So, I mean, I'll give you 2 minutes. This is what I normally do when I present a webinar. I just waffle for 2 minutes while I wait for people to ask me questions. Creatively, obviously, I know you ended up sleeping through most of it, which is quite unfortunate, but a dangerous situation has very kindly been streaming and obviously recording this for us. So, what I would suggest you specifically do, if you go watch the VOD, I know it is about 2 hours long, but yeah, do watch the VOD. And then if you come back to me afterwards with any questions you have, we will continue to work together to try and make this tree the best tree that it can be. Um, I was gonna say this at the start if you were here, but like I want you specifically to know that like obviously, to be very blunt, there's a lot of work that needs doing with this tree, but I don't want you to feel like you have in any way like uniquely failed or that like you are like a bad designer or anything. I think your tree unfortunately has been victim to I don't necessarily want to say like a failure of region review, but I think there is a bit of a like a circumstance with the Dwarvivar review team basically being completely changed over and very new, and also it's your first time developing, so it's kind of developed into this situation where we're a little bit rough in content review. Yes, exactly. There were things that should have been caught that have not been caught. Yeah. Okay. Well, nobody's asked me anything, and I just accidentally bit my cheek, so I'm going to end the session here. Um, I love harpies. Harpies are the best. Bye bye.